So I'm not ready with the PPT, so I have requested you all to have the GST Bear Act, which will help you to understand which provision I am referring to in the course of my discussion. And I will try to cover the provisions for appeal and revision, which is there in section 107 of the GST Act, CGST, SGST Act, and 108, which talks about the revision. These are the two provisions which are relevant for today's discussion. I will just first give a flavor as to what provisions provide insofar as appeal and revision is concerned. Then I will touch briefly on the writ remedies which are available before the high courts. So I will first start with section 107 of the GST Act, which is a provision which prescribes appellate remedies. Now, uh, when we talk about appeal, we are contemplating to challenge a particular demand order. Now, this order could be, it can be interchangeably, it can be used with the words decision. So any order or decision which has been passed by the authorities, probably the orders would be passed under section 73 or section 74 of the GST Act. I believe my co-speakers who have already taken the session in this particular course, they have already touched upon the provisions of section 73 and 74. Section 73 provides for issuance of notice when there is no fraud suppression, and section 74 provides for issuance of notice when there is a case involving fraud suppressions. Now, under both these provisions, the authorities would be passing the order within the prescribed timeline, by virtue of which they would be either creating a demand or they would be dropping the show cause notice. Now, let us take the case where demand has been confirmed against me as an assessee. The demand has been confirmed. So, if I am desirous to pursue an appellate remedy, I have to take recourse to the provisions contained in section 107. I believe this section is in front of you. This will help during the course of my discussion because I would be referring to various subsections. Now, the general provision provides under subsection 1 of section 107 that any person who is aggrieved with an order passed by an authority, he may make an appeal. He can file an appeal within the prescribed period of 3 months. I would just like to indicate in case anyone wants to have any question during the course of my deliberation, he can raise his hand and I would address those questions first. Otherwise, I will continue with my deliberations. So, the person who wants to prefer an appeal, he has to prefer appeal within the prescribed period of 3 months. Prescribed period is 3 months, section 107, subsection 1. Now, this particular period, I have been I have been suggested if I have a screen, Barak screen, I can share the screen. But see, actually, the screen will be, I do not have that ready, Barak in today. So it will be very helpful if you can have the Barak in front of you. So I will proceed. Now, subsection 1 provides for filing of appeal within the prescribed timeline of 3 months. This is for the assessee who is to file the appeal. And the very subsequent subsection provides that even if suppose the department wants to prefer an appeal, now there could be a case where the show cause notice was issued and in the course of adjudication, considering my submissions, the authority has dropped the demand or has confirmed demand in part. So to that extent, if the department believes that they are aggrieved with that particular order passed by a subordinate authority, even the department can prefer an appeal before the first appellate authority. And the time limit that has been prescribed for filing the appeal for the department is 6 months under section 107 subsection 2. Now, both the parties, if they are not able to prefer an appeal within the stipulated timeline, for assessee 3 months and for the department 6 months, if they are not able to prefer appeal within that prescribed period, there is a extension of time which is available of further 1 month under subsection 4 for both the assessee and department. So if the appeal is filed within the extended timeline of 1 month with an application for condonation, the appellate authority will consider the request for condonation. If there is a sufficient cause, he will condone the delay in filing the appeal. So now this is all about the filing of appeal within the prescribed timeline. One requirement is there to file an appeal is to make a pre-deposit, which is mandatory in nature. Now, this particular pre-deposit is already, we have seen, starting from the service tax central excise regime. In 2014, an amendment was brought for the first time, 6th of August 2014. From that date, whatever the appeals were being filed before the commissioner appeal, first appellate authority or the tribunal, the assessees were required to make a mandatory pre-deposit of 7.5% or 10%, as was prevalent during the pre-GST regime. Now, initially, what was the practice is that the assessees who were filing the appeal, in those days, they had an option to make a application without making any pre-deposit. And in the course of stay hearing, the appellate authority will give a direction as to he will grant a complete waiver of pre-deposit, or he will ask the assessee concerned to make a part deposit. So those were the practice in those regime in the pre-excise. But from 2014 onwards, the mandatory provision was introduced to make the pre-deposit of 7.5 or 10% as applicable. Now in the GST regime also, there is a mandatory requirement to make a pre-deposit if the appeal is being filed before the first appellate authority. That is, probably it will depend upon the state. Insofar as the central GST is concerned, generally the additional commissioner or joint commissioner will be the first appellate authority. And insofar as state is concerned, likewise, it will all depend upon the state who are assigned the appellate functions. So whosoever files an appeal, specifically assessee, if he prepares an appeal under section 107, he is required to make a mandatory pre-deposit of 10% of the tax amount. And suppose taking a case where an assessee, suppose show cause notice was issued for 100 rupees, and in the course of adjudication, he accepts that 10 rupees is the admitted tax liability, and he would be contesting for the balance 90 rupees. In that case, this particular provision, subsection 4, subsection 6, in fact, subsection 6 provides that the person who, the assessee, has to make the pre-deposit in entirety of the tax liability he has accepted. So 10 rupees he has to make the deposit. Apart from that, for the balance 90, if he is contesting that particular tax demand, he has to make a 10% deposit. So 10 rupees plus 10% of 90 rupees, 9 rupees, 19 rupees he has to make the deposit. Now, before the amendment which has now been tabled before the Lok Sabha in 2024, Finance Number 2 Act, the provision as it was there, it required the assessee to make the pre-deposit of, in the first appeal, 50 crore, 25 crore CGST, 25 crore SGST. That is the maximum amount. Suppose the 10% crosses this particular amount of 50 crore, then the assessee was required to make whichever is the higher. but with a cap of 50 crore, 25 CGST and 25 SGST while filing the appeal before the first appellate authority. And in the second appeal, he was required to make another 20%. So total 30% was the requirement to file, to make the pre-deposit for the purpose of filing the appeal. So in the first, before the first appellate authority, 50 crore was the maximum cap, which has now been proposed to be brought down from 50 crore to 40 crore, 20 crore CGST and 20 crore SGST. This is all about the amount which the assessee is required to make the pre-deposit. I will not further deliberate on this issue. Now, this particular provision, it prescribes even how the appeal. I'm getting few questions in between. Just see. So the first question I have got, because I think it is relevant because I'm discussing on this issue. How is the 3 months period for filing a first appeal period calculated? Is it based on 90 days, 3 calendar months, just 3 months, or another method? So first of all, let me answer that there is no 90 days concept because the law specifically provides for 3 months. The very subsection provides for filing of appeal within 3 months from the date on which said decision is communicated to such person. So assuming that uh, the order is communicated on 1st of January 2024. Now, how it will be communicated? It will be communicated by way of uploading the orders on the portal. So I have to compute the period of 3 months from 1st of January 2024, that is February, March, April. So the appeal should be filed within 1st of April 2024. This is what the law provides, 3 months. The second question is, can appellate authority give relief in requirement of pre-deposit as it is used to be in income tax and in service tax regime? So let me state that this provision, as I have said, this provision was there even in the central excise effective from 2020, 2014. Central excise or service tax, even in customs. This is a mandatory provision, and the appellate authority has no discretion to reduce the amount of pre-deposit. In the event the assessee is of the view that he is not able to make the pre-deposit, the only recourse is to approach to High Court in writ petition. Now, these are all discretionary, whether High Court would be entertaining such prayer. We will come later on in subsequent course of our discussion. So these two questions I have taken. Now I will proceed with my further deliberation. So now this particular section, now another question that has been posed to me, how date of service of SCN or order is determined. As I have said, that the authorities are under legal obligation to upload the show cause notice or order on the GST portal. To my understanding, the date when the order is uploaded will be considered to be the date of communication of such order or show cause notice to the assessee. If suppose the order is sent in manual form, hard copy, that will not be considered to be a valid mode of delivery. But in that case, there would be probably some dispute, because suppose the manual, we have been seeing this practice, which is generally done by central GST in most of the cases, that the orders are being sent manually, hard copies. So for the sake of abundance precaution, one may prefer appeal within 3 months from the date of receipt of the hard copy of the order. Otherwise, suppose the appeal is not entertained by the appellate authority, the only recourse will be to approach High Court for seeking necessary direction. But in my view, unless the orders are uploaded online, it is not a proper mode of delivery. So we will come to rectification later on. We will continue with particular appellate provision which is there for today's subject matter of discussion. Now, this particular section provides for granting of opportunity of being heard considering the principle of natural justice, which prescribes for three adjournments if any reasonable cause is shown. The appellate authority will give you hearing and pass the order. Now, one important aspect that I would like to highlight, the GST regime, the GST Act has categorically has introduced a provision which prescribes that the appellate authority, first appellate authority, he will pass the order by confirming or setting aside or annulling the demand order. But he will not have option to remand the case back to the lower authority. If you see subsection 11, the appellate authorities shall, after making such further inquiry as may be necessary, pass such order as it thinks just and proper, confirming, modifying, or annulling the decision or order appealed against, but shall not, it is very important, if you have noted this particular provision, but shall not refer the case back to the adjudicating authority that passed the said decision or order. Now, this provision has come for the first time in the GST. It was not there to my knowledge. This particular provision was not there in the pre-GST regime. And considering that there was no specific provision, the courts have interpreted, and there are certain decisions where it has been held in the service tax regime that the central excise officer who is passing the appeal order, he will have the power to remand in absence of any provision. So now in GST regime, we have this particular provision that the appellate authority will not be able to remand the case back to the original authority. When I'm saying original authority, it would mean the person who has passed the first order, demand orders, by issuing the show cause notice either under section 73 or section 74, the first original authority. Now, why this particular provision is there? Because it is in same line in with the Income Tax Act, and the courts have held when the very provision dealing with the appeal provides that the appellate authority would not be able to remand back the matter. In those cases, the power of appellate authority is coterminous with the power of the original authority. That means the one which were being done by the original authority, like computation or giving the effect of the order or any kind of computation or any verification of document, those things can also be undertaken by the appellate authority. So I will proceed further. One one unique provision has been introduced in this particular section 107 with the GST Act, introduction of GST Act. If you see second proviso, if you see, unless you are with me on the Bear Act, you will not be able to grasp what I am trying to say, because you need to also go through the provision. When I am reading this particular provision, it is very interesting. This particular second proviso to subsection 11 reads that, provided further that where the appellate authority is of the opinion that any tax has not been paid or short paid or erroneously refunded, or where the input tax credit has been wrongly availed or utilized, no order requiring the appellant to pay such tax or input tax credit shall be passed unless the appellant is given notice to show cause against the proposed order and the order is passed within the time limit prescribed specified under section 73 or section 74. Now, this provision, this provision prescribes that even the appellate authority will have power to issue a show cause notice if he finds that particular demand has got escaped assessment, which is a unique provision which we are seeing in the GST for the first time. You would recall in the pre-GST regime in excise, customs, even customs is also there as of today also. Even in present customs or the erstwhile excise or service tax, once a show cause notice has been issued, order has been issued by the original authority, the subject matter for appeal would be limited to what has been decided in the adjudication order passed by the original authority. A particular point which has been missed out cannot be reopened by the appellate authority. Now, this particular provision, which is a unique in nature, second provision to subsection 11, it contemplates, it provides that even the appellate authority is of the view that some tax has escaped, he would be empowered to issue a show cause notice and pass an order for which he will provide adequate opportunity of being heard to the appellant assessee who is already in an appeal. Now, let us take an example. Suppose show cause notice was issued for 100 rupees, denying ITC. Assessee files reply, and the original authority is not satisfied with the submissions made by the assessee. He confirms the demand by passing a adjudication order. So, the adjudication order has been passed by the original authority. Now, the assessee has challenged that adjudication order by filing appeal under section 107. Now, in the course of hearing, if the appellate authority is of the view that there are certain aspects which has not been considered or notice was not issued originally, that is probably what is being contemplated by this second proviso, that the appellate authority will issue a notice asking the assessee to make a representation as to why demand on the aspect which was not covered in the first show cause notice, why the demand should not be proposed against you, and you file a reply. The appellate authority, after considering the reply as if it was a original proceedings, he will pass an order. So the appellate authority will also have power to issue a notice as an adjudication order. But there is one particular cap, one restriction is which has been provided, that the appellate authority would be passing the order only within the time frame which is originally prescribed under section 73 or section 74. Now, suppose by the time when this appeal is being taken up, which has been filed against the order passed under section 73, that time limit has already lapsed. And because there is a prescribed period of 3 years for the purpose of passing the order under section 73, now that order is under challenge before the first appellate authority, and in the course of hearing, the appellate authority finds that one particular aspect on which demand has escaped. He issues a notice, but he would be able to pass the order only if he is left out with the 3 years time limit under section 73. So that particular safeguards have been provided under this second proviso, that he will not be able to pass the order if the time limit has already lapsed. So this being a unique provision, I thought that I must highlight this particular provision which is there for the first time in GST. We have never seen in the pre-GST regime. Now, these are the provision for the purpose of filing the appeal. Insofar as the procedure with regard to the filing of appeal, we are all aware that the rules prescribes that appeal has to be filed in form APL 01. It is to be filed electronically, and the confirmation with regard to the receipt of appeal will be issued in APL 02, being an acknowledgement that the appellate authority has received. So these are all the procedures. I'm not going into the procedure. So this is the provision for the appeal, first appellate authority. And likewise, similar provisions have been prescribed for the purpose of filing the appeal before the second appellate authority, which is the GST tribunal, which has not yet seen light of the day, in the sense that the appellate authority, GST tribunal, has not yet been, even though notifications have been issued, but it is not yet made functional. Section 112 prescribes for the second appeal. If suppose, if I am still agreed with the order of the first appellate authority, I may prefer second appeal before the GST tribunal under section 112. So the provisions are there in the same line. When the assessee makes the appeal, files the appeal, second appeal, he has to make another pre-deposit. Earlier it was 20%. Additionally, 10% in the first appeal and 20% in the second appeal, 30%. Now, with the proposed amendment, the mandatory pre-deposit has been brought down from 20% to 10%, with a cap of another 40 crore. So 40 crore in the first appeal and 40 crore in the second appeal, total 80 crore is the maximum cap, subject to 10% of the disputed tax amount. So this is all about the mandatory pre-deposit. So I will not get into further with regard to the GST, with regard to the filing of appeal before the tribunal. Now, section 108 is the revisionary authority. Before I discuss on the writ part, I think it is important to deal with the aspect as to what is the revision, which cases the orders passed by the original authority can be revised. Kindly have a look at section 108. Now, the revision we did not have in the service tax or excise regime. We never had. For the first time, we are seeing in the GST regime, provisions have been prescribed for section 108. I know many people are leaving. This is discouraging me, because appeal provisions may not be of much interest, but still I will continue with my deliberations, and I will try to answer whatever the questions are being raised in the comment box. I am able to see many people. I am so sorry. I will not
No.
be able to.
People were leaving again, joining back also. So there might be
Okay.
some issue because number of participants are almost more or less consistent.
See, see, I will try, because it is important to give you first the flavor of what the provision prescribes. Then I will deal with some interesting aspect. My I can only make a request to the audience to bear with me for few minutes, so that at least I can touch up the statutory provisions, which will actually help me to connect when I deal with the real life scenario. Okay, so I thought that I must convey this message in between. I will continue with further. Now we are on the revision, section 108. So if you see why it was required to provide for revision. See, this particular provision 108, to a larger extent, this provision has been borrowed from the income tax. Any person who would be handling income tax appeals, revision, they will be able to grasp it very easily. Because for the first time in indirect taxes, more particularly central indirect taxes, there were provisions in the VAT regime. Sales tax, VAT, there are provisions for revision. Many state VAT provides for revision. But in central excise, in service tax, there was no provision for revision. Now, income tax has not had, I will say, rather in present, 263 prescribes the power of the authorities to revise the orders passed by the original authority, the first authority. Section 263. What was the crux? Crux is that when the commissioner under the Income Tax Act, when the commissioner is of the view that the order which has been passed by the original authority is erroneous and is prejudicial to the interest of revenue, he may make revision within such and such prescribed timeline as prescribed under Section 263 of the Income Tax Act. Similar provisions, largely to large extent, has been prescribed in the GST for the first time. Now, it is also important to mention here at this juncture that unlike Central Excise Service Tax GST, where against the order of the original authority, department may also prefer an appeal, as I have just indicated that under Section 107, appeal section provides that even the department can file an appeal within 6 months. It was also there in the Central Excise that the department could file appeal before the commissioner appeal, first appeal. Similar provisions was not there in the income tax. It is still not there in the income tax. Any order which is passed by an ITO, that order cannot be challenged by way of filing an appeal before CITA, Commissioner of Income Tax Appeal. There is no provision in income tax. The income tax provides two windows basically. Suppose the commissioner is of the view that the order which has been passed by the ITO is erroneous and it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue, he would make a revision by taking support of Section 263, because there is no provision to prescribe filing of appeal by the department. This is one window in the income tax. Another window is there if the income has escaped assessment. 147 proceedings, 147, 148 notice can be issued under 147, and they can reopen the cases if a particular income has escaped assessment. In that case, notice will be issued, and then the assessee will be asked to file the reply whether the assessment has to be reopened. So there were only two windows in the income tax, but there was no mechanism for the purpose of filing appeal, prescribing the provision for filing of the appeal by the income tax, which in our case, in indirect tax case, excise, GST, there is a provision all along. Now, in GST, what has been done, even though there is a provision for filing of appeal by the department, they have introduced this revision. It meaning thereby that department will have option to file an appeal against the original authority within 6 months plus 1 month extended timeline, as well as they have also power to revise by virtue of Section 108, under Section 108. Now, with this background, I will touch upon what the provisions of Section 108 prescribes, which prescribes the power of the revisionary authority. Now, subsection 1. I will read the relevant portion of this provision, which will help you to understand the intent of the section and the few takeaways what the section provides. Subject to provision of Section 121. Now, before I get into revision, I skipped mentioning that there is another Section 121, which prescribes that in certain circumstances, no appeal under 107 can be filed either by the assessee or by the department. 121. If you can have a look, Section 121. No appeal shall lie against the order passed in 4 of the cases, A, B, C, D. What it prescribes is the list of 4 situations where appeal cannot be filed, either by the party, assessee, or by the department. Number one, there is a transfer of any proceeding from one authority to another. This is absolutely internal proceedings that assessee is relegated from one authority to another authority. Second, there is a seizure of the books of accounts or register or any document. So if there is any order that the transfer is made for the proceedings or books of accounts have been seized, there is any order under which a prosecution has been launched under this act, or an order which has been passed under Section 80. Section 80 prescribes that where the assessee has some arrear and he makes a request to the concerned authority to make the payment in installment, the authority will consider that request and allow the assessee to make the payment in installment. So against those four orders, appeal would not lie. This is what Section 121 prescribes. Now I will again come back to 108, which starts with subject to the provisions of Section 121, so and so, the revisionary authority may on his own motion or upon information received by him, own motion माने कि अपने आप suo motu, या अगर उसको कोई information मिलता है, or on the request from the commissioner of state tax. Suppose I, being a revisionary authority in the central GST, if I receive an intimation from my counterpart sitting in the state GST, अगर वहां से भी अगर हमको मिलता है information या request, call for and examine, the revisionary authority will call for and examine the record of any proceeding. यहाँ record का क्या meaning है? Record का meaning specifically यहाँ define किया है. All records relating to the proceedings under this act available at the time of examination. मेरे पास में जितने भी records available है before the revisionary authority, I can call all those records. So call for and examine the record of any proceeding, and if he consider, I have to make a consideration, I have to examine and I have to make a consideration, I have to make a determination. इसका मतलब है कि I will have to make necessary notings in my file that I have called for such and such record and I have duly applied my mind, and then I arrived at a particular determination. And I consider that the order which has been passed by the original authority, by an officer who is subordinate to me, is erroneous. Very important word, is erroneous insofar as it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue. माने यहाँ अगर आप लोग देखेंगे words which have been used, it is absolutely pari-materia with the income tax 263 section. It is erroneous insofar as it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue and is illegal or improper or has not taken into account certain material facts. Suppose any particular order has been passed by the original authority without considering the material fact. Now, this material fact may be existing at the time when the order was being passed by the original authority, or it was not available. But this material fact has come to me as a revisionary authority. So I will call for all those records. I will examine, I will make a determination that the order which has been passed is erroneous insofar as it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue. Revenue का loss हो रहा है, and there was a wrong order, erroneous order, or an illegal or an improper order. Whether available improper has not taken into account certain material facts, whether available at the time of issuance of the said order or not, in consequence of the observation by the CAG. Now, this is important aspect. This provision is not there in the income tax in the revisionary proceedings 263. We are seeing for the first time. CAG का recommendation होता है कि this order has been passed by the original authority is erroneous. So a recommendation come to me, revisionary authority, that you may proceed for revision of the order. So a recommendation comes from the CAG. CAG अगर audit कर रहा है, he may, if necessary, stay the operation of such order for such period, so and so, and after making such inquiry, so I have to make a necessary an inquiry. Simply, I cannot be influenced with those recommendations coming from the CAG or those recommendations coming from my counterpart from the state GST. That this is an erroneous order. I have to independently, I have to examine. I have to make a further inquiry as may be necessary and pass such order as he thinks just and proper, including enhancing, जितना नहीं था demand वो enhance भी हो सकता है, or modifying or annulling the said decision or order. So this is what the provision prescribes. Ample power has been given by way of the revision under 108 subsection 1. This is what actually the power has been provided. Now in the rest of subsection it prescribes timeline. कि कब हो सकता है, कब नहीं हो सकता है revision. I should continue. Should I continue with this, or should I come in by virtue of a practical aspect? I would seek opinion from the house because it is already 5:50. Uh,
Well, we
Hello.
can continue.
Because see, when I am dealing with all this section, it is some time taking. I have to because in order to make understand what the section prescribe, I have to also deal with subsections to make a as to what actually the law is prescribing, so that I will be able to connect later on. So this is the fundamental provision which prescribes for revision, and subsection 2 prescribes that the time limit कब हो सकता है नहीं. I will not get into. I will cut short my discussion because otherwise we would be having very limited time for a writ remedy, which is more important, interesting for today's deliberation. Most of you would be struggling as to whether we should approach in writ petition before High Court or by way of filing the appeal. I think that will be more interesting in order to make the session lively. Am I okay with that?
Yes, sir.
A few of the audience may also please join with me because this topic which has been assigned to me, possibly I am speaking to my friends, participants who may not be very thorough with this provision, so they may be finding it to be very boring. Please, I don't want let it to happen this because I don't want to just finish off the session unless it is interactive both session and it is a lively session. I will be failing in my duty. You are all welcome. If you can unmute yourself and you can uh, give me suggestion. So, see, I have given just a flavor as to appeal and revision. So, plenary powers have been given. Number of avenues have been given to the department to reopen the proceedings. They have the scope for filing the appeal. They have the scope for making a revision. 3 years period has been given to make the revision of the order if they are of the view that it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue because that order is erroneous. Before I go into the next issue, since I do not have any PPT, if you can please note it down if my audience friends are uh, interested to understand the meaning of prejudicial to the interest of revenue. What does it mean? If you can please note it down. There is a very famous judgment of the Supreme Court which has been rendered in Income Tax 263. It is Malabar Industrial Company Limited versus Commissioner of Income Tax. I will repeat. It is Malabar Industrial Company Limited versus Commissioner of Income Tax, and the citation is 2109 Taxman 66, page number 66. I hope you have noted down the citation 2000, year 2000, volume 109, Taxman 66, page number 66, Supreme Court, Malabar Industrial Company. Now, actually, in which of the cases can it be said to be that the order is erroneous? Very good decision has been the interpretation has been the Supreme Court has the opportunity to interpret as to what would constitute an erroneous order. Now, the assessing authority, just very briefly, I will touch. If the assessing authority had uh, the option whether to consider the interpretation, and the two views were possible, one that view A is possible or B is possible, and it is very difficult to decide. It cannot be said that A is correct or B is correct. So in those cases, suppose officer chooses that view A is correct, and the revisionary authority, if the revisionary authority is of the view no, A is not correct, but it is B, in that case, it cannot be said to be erroneous. So that meaning has been, if you can find out the meaning of the word erroneous, which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court in this case, whether it may so happen that it is prejudicial to the interest of revenue, but it is not erroneous because the provision prescribes that it has to be both. It has to be read in conjunction, that it has to be an erroneous and it has to be prejudicial to the interest of revenue. So the second one, the prejudicial to the interest of revenue, is of very wide import, because any non-payment of tax, short payment of tax, definitely it will be prejudicial to the interest of revenue. That is what the Supreme Court has dealt in this particular case, Malabar Industrial. But whether it is erroneous, so twin conditions have to be satisfied. The AO who has passed the order, he has applied his discretion that since two views are possible, it cannot be said that it is erroneous. In those cases, the revisionary power cannot be exercised. But barring that, one new thing we are seeing in the GST regime is that on the basis of the recommendation of the CAG, that we have to see how the courts will interpret. So this is all about the appeal and revision. Now, it is 6 o'clock. Very briefly, I will deliberate writ remedy, because today's topic for discussion which has been given is appeal, revision, writ. See, writ before the high courts would lie under Article 226 of the Constitution of India. 226. There is a writ remedy before Supreme Court under Article 32. That, for a moment, we will not touch upon, because that is again another domain. More important is 226 for today's discussion, considering the GST aspect. 226. रिट रेमेडी कब हम लोग एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं और कब हमको नहीं करना चाहिए, दैट इज आई वुड ट्राई टू टच अपॉन माय टुडेज डेलिब्रेशन. सी, if you see the constitution, writ remedy 226, it prescribes that every high court shall have power throughout the territories in relation to which it exercises jurisdiction to issue to any person or authority, including in appropriate cases, any government within those territory, direction, orders, writs, including writ in the nature of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, so and so, for the enforcement of any rights conferred by Part 3 or any other purpose. तो ये बेसिकली 226 का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन प्रेस्क्राइब करता है. नाउ insofar as GST is concerned, one probable in most of the time the question arises कि हमको अपील में जाना चाहिए या रिट में जाना चाहिए. Straight away, see, the courts have interpreted when the writ remedy will lie, and for the interest of audience, I would suggest to read two judgments Definitely, I will deliberate. I will touch upon the few important aspects which comes from this judgment. If you can please note it down, this will give you the insights as to when one should approach to High Court in writ. If you please note it down, it is Godrej Sara Lee Limited versus Excise and Taxation Officer, and the citation is 2023 SCC Online, Supreme Court, page 95. Year is 2023, very recent decision, 2023 SCC Online, Supreme Court, page number 95. It is Godrej Sarari Limited. And another one, a very short order of Allahabad High Court, which also deliberates when a writ remedy can be exercised. It is Bharat Mint and Allied Chemicals versus Commissioner Commercial Tax and others. I will repeat, Bharat Mint and Allied Chemicals versus Commissioner Commercial Taxes. And the citation is 2022, volume number 3, TMI, Tax Management India, TMI, page number 492, Allahabad High Court. Now, देखिए क्या होता है कि रिट रेमेडी देखिए फंडामेंटली रिट लाई करेगा 4-5 situations में broadly where there is a complete lack of jurisdiction in the officer or the authority to take up the action or to pass the order impugned. अगर कोई ऑर्डर अगर पास हो रहा है beyond jurisdiction, the assessee can approach High Court by filing writ petition. This is number one. माने कि अगर lack of jurisdiction है, I will come on and I will touch upon few practical aspect कि lack of jurisdiction कब होता है. Secondly, if you want to challenge any wires of the act or rules or notification, then you can straight away come to High Court in the writ jurisdiction. Thirdly, when there is a violation of the principles of natural justice, suppose an order has been passed by the original authority or the appellate authority, first appellate authority, without providing any personal hearing or without providing adequate opportunity. Suppose show cause notice issue हुआ 1st of January and he asked to be present for personal hearing on 7th of January or 3rd of January in a not a sufficient timeline, not providing adequate opportunity. That is again a violation of principles of natural justice. It will all depend upon circumstances to explore, uh, to consider whether there is any violation of principles of natural justice or somebody saying.
I have a question on
Yes.
this point. So,
Yes.
departmental audit, there is a provision that it can go up to 3 months and extended 3 months up to 6 months. So, if an
Right.
audit goes beyond 1 year, and
Okay.
then they issue a show cause after 1 year from the initiation of audit, can that for that also we can go for writ petition for the
See
show
when
cause?
see once see if suppose there's again another aspect where the writ can lie. If suppose something is required to be done in terms of the statute, which has not been done, it you are entitled to come in High Court by filing the writ petition. Specifically, if the procedures which have been prescribed in the statute has not been followed, you can come in writ petition. That there is a violation of the statutory provision. They were required to follow particular section Having not done that, they have issued me the notice. That can be very much challenged. So I will continue. So there is any, if suppose there is any violation of principles of natural justice, or there is any, if you want to enforce any of your fundamental right to do the business, उसमें भी हम लोग रिट पे जा सकते हैं. And the next one is procedure which is required has not been adopted by the authority. That is what Siddhant had raised this question. If the procedure which is prescribed in the act has not been followed, and if they bypass those statutory provision, you can come in writ. If suppose an order is passed by an abuse of the process of law, in that case also you can come in writ petition, where the show cause notice has been issued with a preconceived mind or premeditated or a closed mind. Suppose the show cause notice has been issued, you have evaded the payment of duty and you now make the payment of tax, so and so. Without, by reading through the show cause notice, you can understand they have already made up their mind. They are already preconceived, because in most of the cases it has been seen that the show cause notice, the language which has been used, it is as good as that it is a pure adjudication order. There is no difference between a show cause and an order. You can come by way of filing the writ petition. In most of the cases, the courts have also allowed writ petition in those cases where the issue is only legal interpretation, rather there is no factual controversy. In those cases, courts have allowed, they have admitted the writ petitions. So these are all the cases. Most importantly, देखिए चार cases है. Complete lack of jurisdiction, number one. Number two, violation of principles of natural justice. Number three, if you want to challenge any circular, because suppose कोई अगर section है या rule है, you find it to be ultra vires, you want to challenge that particular provision of rule or the circular, you have to file a writ petition, because if you come in appeal or if you file the reply to show cause notice, the authorities will be bound by the provision of law or the circular. They will not go beyond the circular. In those cases, you can challenge the rule or the circular. If you are issued a show cause notice, even at the time of show cause notice level, you can prefer writ petition. Need not wait for the adjudication order even. So these are the cases. Fundamentally, an assessee may come in High Court by filing writ under Article 226. Few real life example I would like to discuss कि हम लोग किस केस में हम लोग रिट में हम लोग जा रहे हैं या हम लोगों को जाना चाहिए. See, admission of writ is purely a discretionary. The High Court has its own discretion whether it will admit the writ petition. It cannot be said that you have a fundamental right to कि आपका writ petition आपका admit होना चाहिए. This is not your fundamental right. Filing of writ petition is not your fundamental right. Filing आप कर सकते हो, but entertainment of writ petition is not your fundamental right. Rather, I would say it has to be put in such a way. High Court has discretion whether it will entertain a writ petition or not. Now, क्या होता है कि क्वेश्चन अराइजेस कि शो कॉज हमको मिला, हमको अभी रिट में जाना चाहिए, और I should file the reply and obtain the adjudication order by the original authority. उसके बाद में हमको रिट में जाना चाहिए, या हमको फर्स्ट अपील अथॉरिटी में हमको अपील फाइल करके ऑर्डर लेने के बाद में रिट में जाना चाहिए. It will all depend upon the facts of each and every case. There is no bar which restricts an assessee to prefer a writ petition even at the show cause notice stage. As I have said, that the show cause notice has been issued with a preconceived mind. They have already made up their mind. You can straight away come to High Court. Just taking an example, if suppose the show cause notice which has been issued is beyond jurisdiction, you need not wait for the order. Now, in which of the cases we will say that this particular show cause notice is beyond jurisdiction? You must have heard that decisions are coming from various high courts, like proceedings were already initiated by the state authority, and either they proceeded by issuance of a show cause notice and they have passed the order by dropping the show cause notice, or in few of the other cases, like they proceeded but they did not further issue any show cause notice, and the matter has been examined by the state authority. Now, after some interval of time, Central GST is now proposing to proceed against me by filing a by issuing a show cause notice. In that case, you can say that the proposed action of the Central GST authority is beyond jurisdiction. Why I am saying so? There is a specific section in the GST Act. If you see section 6, which is the provision prescribing authorization of officers of state or union territory tax as proper officer in certain circumstances. Section 6 of the CGST Act also ideally identically worded in SGST. Only the CGST has been replaced with SGST, and in the SGST they have replaced with the words CGST. So if you see subsection 2, section 6, subsection 2, अगर आप लोग ये सेक्शन पढ़ेंगे, it provides a complete bar that when one of the authority, that state has already initiated a proceeding on a particular issue, what it says, where I am reading section 6(2)(b), 6(2)(b), where a proper officer under the SGST or Union GST has initiated any proceeding or a subject matter, has initiated any proceeding on a subject matter, no proceeding shall be initiated by the proper officer under this Central Act on the same subject matter. I hope you have gone through this subsection. 6(2)(b). अगर कोई proceeding अगर already state से हो गया है, on the very same issue, now the central authority is proposing to proceed against me, and it has issued a show cause notice. You have already, before show cause, in the pre-show cause or in a general memo notice they have issued before issuing the show cause, ASMD 10, you have already informed the authority, Central GST, that look, already I have been examined by the state GST authority. This matter has already been examined and they did not proceed, or they have either after examining they have dropped the demand. They did not proceed further. So you do not proceed under this subsection, which prescribes a complete bar that now the CGST authority cannot proceed. In those cases, in case CGST issues a show cause notice, DRC 01, under section 73 or 74, you can prefer a writ petition, which will be said to be, because in those cases, you can take a stand that this notice is beyond jurisdiction. He does not have any jurisdiction to issue the show cause notice. There can be a number of cases where we can say that he doesn't have jurisdiction. I have just taken one example. Second example could be that the central circulars have been issued that there are monetary powers that one particular authority will, superintendent will decide up to 10 lakh, JC will decide up to of a amount higher than that. Now, if suppose an officer of a lower rank is proposing to issue a show cause notice or has issued a show cause notice, in that case also, he would be acting beyond jurisdiction and you can very much challenge in writ petition. Number two. Number three, there can be case where um provision of section 74 has been initiated by alleging that there is a fraud suppression, and you are of opinion that you believe that there was no suppression and everything was well before the authority. It is already documented. It is there in the return. It was there in my GSTR 9. It is already forming part in my audited accounts. There is no case of any suppression, but they are still uh, issuing show cause notice under section 74. In that case also, courts have entertained writ petition even at the show cause notice stage or even after the passing of the adjudication order. In those cases, the writ would lie. But as I have said, that entertainment of writ is definitely, it is the discretion of the High Court. So you have to evaluate whether you would choose to file reply to the show cause notice or you will choose to file an appeal against the adjudication order instead of coming in the writ petition. That choice have to be made considering the facts of each and every case. There is no straight cut formula that इस cases में आप high court चले जाइए, इस case में आप appeal चले जाइए. Each facts have to be evaluated whether it is worth approaching high court, क्योंकि if the amount is not high, you would rather prefer to make pre-deposit and file an appeal, because the moment you file an appeal under 107 or 112 before the tribunal when it is formed, you make the pre-deposit. The moment you make the pre-deposit, the demand is stayed. So that comfort you have in a appeal remedy as against the writ. So that choice have to be made in each and every facts of the case. Now, there could be a case like high-pitched assessment order has been passed against me. Abruptly, एकदम illegal order pass हुआ है, perverse order pass हुआ है. Now, I am not in position to carry this particular matter in appeal because practically, I am not in position to make a pre-deposit. Now, mind you, if I am saying that I am not in a position to make a pre-deposit, this particular plea will not be accepted by High Court, because High Court will say that merely to bypass the pre-deposit you have come and read, that argument will not sustain. But practically, I am not in a position, I will be completely out of business because of such a high-pitched assessment. You can explore the writ remedy. You have to make out an exceptional case that the order is perverse. That is why I am before the High Court. As I have said, that you have to make out an exceptional case, because if High Court is of the view that no, unless an exceptional case is made out, High Court will not be inclined to entertain the writ petition. You can rather say you can put in such a way that filing of appeal is a rule and writ is an exception. As we say generally that bail is a rule and jail is exception, you can replicate that particular saying that filing of appeal is the rule and writ remedy is exceptional. So you have to determine, you have to consider the facts of each and every case. कहाँ हमको रिट फाइल करना चाहिए, कहाँ हमको अपील में जाना चाहिए. आपको ऑर्डर पास कर दिया विदाउट hearing दिए. Yeah, suppose in most of the cases we are seeing things happening like 1819 का टाइम बार हो रहा था अप्रैल 24 में, 30th of April 2024. And many officers, many of the authorities, what they have done, they have passed the order just few days before the due date of passing the order, 21st of April or 25th of April 2024, without considering even your reply. And in many cases, surprisingly, without giving any personal hearing. And I have seen many of the cases like Officer Mr. A heard me in the course of personal hearing 3 months back, but he could not pass the order, and actually the order is passed by Mr. B. This has happened in many of the cases. So, meaning thereby, the person who has passed the order has not given me an opportunity of being heard. Sufficient opportunity has not been given. In those cases, you can file a writ petition. Or in cases where you find that there is a circular against you, board circular, which you believe that this circular is illegal. But unless that circular is set aside by High Court, because appellate authority have no power to set aside the circular. They can give more credence to the provision. But if you are of the view that they will be more inclined to follow the circular, and unless this circular or the rule is struck down, if you are of the view that this particular notification or a rule is ultra vires the provision of the act, the only remedy is to file a writ petition before the High Court. In that case, आपको हाई कोर्ट में आके ही चैलेंज करना पड़ेगा पर्टिकुलर प्रोविजन ऑफ रूल. So we are now 6:20. So this is all about writ petition, appeal, revision. I have just tried to give you a flavor to my limited understanding and given the limited time. So if you have any question, we can take. I have few questions seeing in the comment box. Uh, One question I am getting is, sir, even superintendent issues order back, but within the limitation period, upload on the portal with pre-generated DIN. I fail to understand how they will issue a pre-generated DIN. Is it a valid? So unless you have any reason to show that it is pre-generated, it will not be possible for you to contend that it is pre-generated. Is filing a writ the only recourse available for a 121 order? So 121, yes, Section 121 prescribes for 4 scenarios where the appeals cannot be filed. So you are correct in saying that writ is the remedy. Now you have to show that there is a violation of principles of natural justice, or that the order which has been passed is perverse. Those parameters you have to fulfill. And if you go through these two decisions I have mentioned, you will get a fair idea as to under which situation the writ will lie. If you are covered by those situations, you can definitely file writ petition. And there is one question. In most cases, most writ cases, we have observed that the matter is often sent back to the original authority with the opportunity for personal hearing, and give certain timeline to deal with the matter. This process often leads to departmental hardship. Don't be bothered about the departmental hardship or personal anger potentially. So, do you believe that filing a writ petition is most effectively? As I have said, you have to evaluate and you have to take a balanced decision as to whether you would be preferring writ petition as against the appeal remedy. Definitely, those eventualities do happen that after you were purging in the writ, 2 3 years have already lapsed. Now the court quashes that particular adjudication order and relegates back to you for a fresh adjudication. Those things do happen, but at least you are safe from struggling with those illegal order by way of challenging in appeal. So you are at least placed to the square one position back at the show cause notice stage. You will get again another opportunity to make submissions before the original authority. So these are the questions. I can take questions if the audience. Hello everyone. कोई है या ऑनलाइन? आर
हाँ
यू
हाँ,
प्रेजेंट?
नहीं नहीं, सब है, एवरीवन लिसनिंग। बट क्वेश्चन पूछने में सब पीछे हो जाते हैं।
No, any question, so that see I have tried to give only just as in a flavor. अपील का सेक्शन क्या है, रिवीजन का क्या सेक्शन है, रीट रेमेडी क्या, दिस इज एब्सोल्युटली अ वेरी प्रिलिमिनरी आइडिया. ठीक है, विद इन 1.5 hour सेशन आई एम नॉट कॉम्पिटेंट एनफ कि हम पूरा एक आपको उसमें कमेंट्री दे दे. इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट अनलेस आई टच अपॉन द very statutory provision. That is what I tried to do. If you have any question, you can raise. Any audience, you are most welcome to raise any question. Chat box छोड़ के you can straight away come on the screen and raise query, which will benefit to the other audience as well. No question. Siddhant, I believe there is no question from audience.
हाँ।
Either they have not understood anything or which is most likely, and or they have
सर
understood which is
सर
which is not
हेलो
possible.
सर।
Yes, sir.
सर नमस्कार।
नमस्कार जी.
सर, जो आपने अपील का पीरियड बताया था 3 महीने का,
जी.
मैंने रेक्टिफिकेशन फाइल की हुई है 161 में, तो वो
ओके.
पीरियड एक्सक्लूड होगा। उसका ऑर्डर होता है मान लो अगस्त में, और मेन ऑर्डर पास हुआ जून में, तो अपील
देखिए,
पीरियड स्टार्ट कब से होगा? अगस्त से होगा या जून से ही माना
अपील
जाएगा?
की पीरियड वहीं से स्टार्ट होगी जब आपको ऑर्डर मिली थी, नॉट द
ओके,
रेक्टिफिकेशन ऑर्डर.
तो वो पीरियड एक्सक्लूड नहीं होगा?
नहीं, ये एक्सक्लूड नहीं होगा. ये एक्सक्लूड होगा ओनली अगर आप हाई कोर्ट में जाते हैं, बिकॉज एपेलेट
हाई
अथॉरिटी.
कोर्ट।
देखिए,
ओके।
एपेलेट अथॉरिटी का जुरिसडिक्शन नहीं है. दे विल ओनली कंसिडर 3 months एंड 1 month एक्सटेंडेड टाइमलाइन. तो वो 3 months कहाँ से स्टार्ट होगा? जो 107 सबसेक्शन 1 में प्रोवाइड किया है, कम्युनिकेशन ऑफ द ऑर्डर. ऑर्डर माने जो आप जिससे अग्रीव्ड थे सेक्शन 73 में या 74 में, अगर कोई डिमांड ऑर्डर है,
ठीक
दैट इज द ऑर्डर,
ठीक।
नॉट द रेक्टिफाइड
नहीं,
ऑर्डर.
मैं ये रेक्टिफाई ऑर्डर में कुछ डिमांड कम हो गई, ओमिशन ऑन
ओके.
रिकॉर्ड था।
हाँ, तो इन दैट केस
ओमिशन ऑन
ऑल्सो,
रिकॉर्ड था,
इन
तो पीरियड
दैट
मेरे
केस
हिसाब से
ऑल्सो
स्टार्ट वहां से होगा जहां पर
मैं
रेक्टिफाई
बता
होके आया। जी सर।
मैं बताता हूँ.
हम्म,
आपको ऑर्डर मिली 31 मार्च 2024 को.
जी सर।
ठीक है, और 31 जुलाई 2024 में आपको रेक्टिफिकेशन ऑर्डर मिला. तो रेक्टिफाइड जो ऑर्डर है जिससे डिमांड आपका कम हो गया,
हम्म।
that will be said to be actually uh, uh, said to be past. क्या बोलते हैं उसको ना, that will be said to be passed on 31st of March. It will merge. There is a concept of merger of order. The
मर्जर ऑफ
rectified order will get merged with the original order. 31st of
Okay.
July को जो rectification की जो order आपकी pass हुई, which has reduced the tax
जी
liability, that
जी
will be said to be merged with the original order passed on 31st of March.
ओके
अगर आपके
लिमिटेशन
पास में
स्टार्ट
time,
मतलब 31st मार्च से ही होगा इसका मतलब
yes, अगर मान लीजिए आपका
ओके
appellate authority suppose if it refuses to entertain your appeal petition,
यस
you will have to go to High Court, and High Court will definitely consider that this particular time frame will be excluded. But
ओके
appellate authority will not be in a position to exclude this.
ओके
This is
सर
my,
वन वन
my view.
ओके वन मोर क्वेश्चन सर लिमिटेशन पीरियड इज लैप्स to filing the appeal.
3 months. Okay.
3 months or one month of condonation also lapse.
Okay.
So he go for writ or he can prefer appeal before the tribunal.
नहीं देखिए ट्राइब्यूनल में नहीं जाना चाहिए. Suppose you should file first the appeal stating the reason why there was a delay.
Okay.
Preferably you
तो
should.
लिमिटेशन में तो बाहर हो जाएगा ना 4 month क्रॉस कर गया.
नहीं हो गया है but it is suggested, it is rather my suggestion to first even file a first appeal.
Yes
unless कि भाई इतना टाइमलाइन निकल गया 10 महीना निकल गया, it will not
हाँ
be in
हाँ
a position, it will not be in a position to condone the delay.
Okay.
You can straight away come to High Court also.
Okay.
There are instances जहां पे ऐसा हुआ है कि we have seen that order जो जीएसटी पोर्टल में क्या होता है कि व्यू अदर नोटिसेस में चला गया है.
हाँ एडिशनल नोटिस
Most frequently,
चला जाता है. ठीक है.
most frequently we have seen.
हाँ उस
1 साल निकल गया है.
उसमें जी जी जी
1 year has already lapsed.
जी जी
In
जी
that case, you can straight away go to High Court also, or appellate remedy में भी जा सकते. It is up to you. You can say that it has not been communicated to me. आप इसको ये stand ले लीजिए first appellate authority.
हाँ उसमें 2 ऑर्डर हैं हाई कोर्ट के, मद्रास हाई कोर्ट का, दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट का भी एसएससी के फेवर में है.
Courts will be taking a liberal approach because it is not that deliberately you have not chosen to prefer the appeal. You have not
Okay.
seen the order which is there in the other notices on the GST. It is not a deliberate action. Okay. And
Okay.
court will not put you in a remediless situation कि कहीं remedy नहीं दे.
जी सर जी सर.
Most likely lenient view लेके court will allow that okay, you prefer an appeal within such and such further time as per the court's order.
Okay. Okay sir. Thank you.
Sir, any other question?
सर इसी का एक डेरिवेटिव क्वेश्चन है.
जी.
The client got a big order for assume 1 CR or something, and he didn't have money to do pre-deposit, so he didn't file an appeal. 6 months, 8 months lapsed. Now it is time barred. Now the department has started blocking ITC. Now he has realized that he had to file appeal. He didn't. So is there any option now? So what
High Court.
remedy is there,
High Court.
sir?
High Court
Writ
remedy.
petition.
Writ petition. See, देखिए अगर देखिए loan reason that I do not have money, this particular reason is not plausible. कि मेरे पास में प्री डिपॉजिट का पैसा नहीं है. Unless you come out with a case that see my net worth is this amount and मेरा इतना बड़ा ये डिमांड हो गया है which otherwise was not sustainable. It is a high pitch assessment. In that case, you will seek mercy of the High Court. You simply cannot rest your case कि मेरे पास में प्री डिपॉजिट के लिए पैसा नहीं है. हाई कोर्ट में ये वाला प्ली चलेगा नहीं अनलेस यू शो कि ये ऑर्डर परवस ऑर्डर है कंप्लीटली और कंप्लीटली विदाउट एप्लीकेशन ऑफ माइंड कि मेरा जितना टर्नओवर नहीं है उतना का डिमांड आपने खड़ा कर दिया. इन दैट केस कोर्ट्स हैव टेकन अ लीनियंसी. मेनी केसेस वी हैव आल्सो हैंडल्ड केसेस जहां पे कोई बेचारा छोटा एसएससी का 2 करोड़ का टर्नओवर है और उसका डिमांड कर दिया 2.5 करोड़ रुपया. And if he is required to make the pre-deposit, he will be completely out of business. In those cases, you have to make out a case that this order is completely perverse and I will be completely out of business if I am asked to explore the appeal remedy. In that case, courts have shown leniency by setting aside those orders for passing a fresh adjudication order with a certain direction.
But in this case, it is time barred also. Now there are two issues now. So
So
there is
that is an
no mercy
independent
for time barred.
ground available to you before the court. टाइम बार इन द सेंस माने क्या ऑर्डर पास करने का ऑर्डर पास हुआ बाद में क्या आफ्टर द स्टिपुलेटेड टाइमलाइन
नहीं, order pass होने के 7-8 months later he goes to high court. The appeal period is also lapsed.
सी व्हाट हैपेंस देखिए अगर आप हाई कोर्ट जाते हैं व्हाट द हाई कोर्ट एक्सपेक्ट्स दैट you should come within a reasonable period of timeline. Now if suppose 3 months is the appellate remedy, it is preferable that you file the writ petition within 3 months. If not, then you have to satisfy to the court what prevented you to approach the high court within that stipulated timeline of 3 months. It is not कोई timeline नहीं है article 226 में, but you have to come in a reasonable time. If there is a delay, you have to justify the reason कि क्यों delay हुआ in approaching the high court. So it will all depend upon the facts of your case. You have to show that you were actively pursuing your case. You were not negligent. That impression you have to create, that you have to take it to the that you have to explain to the high court for such and serious reason हम delayed writ petition file किए हैं. So it will all depend. So one question has been put: who can file and attend appeal other than CA and advocate? Specifically दिया हुआ है who can be the authorized representative. अगर आप देखते हैं सेक्शन 116 में अगर खाली ग्रेजुएट है तो ही इज नॉट एक्चुअली fitting in the definition of authorized representative. Section 116 116 subsection 2 relative or regular employee can appear, cost accountant, company secretary. There are a list of person. GST practitioner can appear. Another question is, can we file it against DRC 01? Show cause notice issued by DGGI on a high pitch demand. Yes, you can file. As I have said, those parameters have to be met. That order, that show cause notice is preconceived, it is beyond jurisdiction. Those parameters have to be met. No matter it is issued by DGGI, you can very well challenge the show cause notice before the High Court. It will all depend upon the facts of your case. Whether decision of writ petition can be applied in other taxpayer. See, if the ratio is coming out of the order passed by a high court in a writ petition, that ratio you can very well apply. But suppose कोई particular case में the high court has shown some mercy that okay, you file an appeal, we allow you to file an appeal. That is absolutely order passed in personam, जिसको बोलते हैं हम लोग. That not the order passed in rem. नहीं, universally applicable नहीं होगा. But अगर कोई taxability पे कोई decision है, कोई credit ITC का entitlement को लेके है, some legal proposition has been laid down, that order can be followed by other assessees as well. I think these are the questions I have tried to answer, unless any other question is posed by the House. So, Siddhant, we can conclude. Better not to hold
Okay.
the audience.
Okay. No. If anyone has any question, we still have like 15 minutes, so we can take up.
because already extended weekend has started.
Yeah.
हाँ,
Mhm.
इंडिपेंडेंस डे फ्राइडे तो अधिकार है छुट्टी का, सैटरडे संडे मंडे फिर those extended weekends.
So there is
Yes.
one question.
हाँ,
The last question: decision of writ petition can be applied in another taxpayer.
हाँ, I have taken this question, I addressed just now. I will repeat. देखिए, अगर कोई लीगल प्रोपोजिशन लेट डाउन किया हुआ है इन अ रिट पिटिशन, suppose a circular has been struck down, any provision of rules has been struck down, that can be very well followed by other SSCs. That can be applied in other proceedings. You can very much rely before the first appellate authority or tribunal or even before the original authority, because that is laying down a ratio of law. ठीक है? But suppose a particular direction has been given by the High Court in a case filed by one particular SSC, he could not file the appeal, and some direction is given, that cannot be applied because that is an order passed in personam जिसको बोलते हैं. That will apply only to that particular petitioner, not to all.
We have more question in chat, sir. If you can see, sir.
Filed the appeal with the authority 1718 in Chandigarh. However, it has been more than 6 months, but the date of hearing is not received. It will come once you have filed the appeal. It will come. ठीक है. And there is actually, if you see section 107, वहां पे भी एक टाइमलाइन दिया हुआ है. Subsection 13 देखिए. The appellate authority shall, where it is possible to do so, very important, where it is possible to do so, hear and decide every appeal within a period of 1 year from the date on which it is filed. So generally 1 साल तो है ही, 6 महीना हुआ है, 6 महीना और उसके पास में टाइमलाइन है. अगर वो 1 साल में पास नहीं करता तो he has to record a reason why the appeal could not be disposed. He should have some plausible reason. Additional Commissioner CGST has rejected the appeal for revocation of registration on the ground of limitation. You should approach in High Court because you do not have any other way out. Unless की कोई notification आपको further allow करता हो, कोई window. To my understanding, you have to prefer a writ petition. Want to know the timeline of the hearing with the appellate tribunal against the same thing as I have read. वहां पे भी ऐसी टाइमलाइन है. ओके. Can first appellate commissioner enhance demand and issue show cause notice under section 74 for appeal filed against order under section 73? I face such a very, very interesting question. This will be we as we proceed with the time will only say whether they can do or not. But in my view, they cannot. They cannot issue. But if you see, no, again, it is a matter of interpretation. If you are in appeal against an order passed under section 73, if you see that section, but it does not prescribe any bar that appellate authority cannot issue a show cause notice under section 74. There is no bar. So it will all depend upon how the courts will take a view. This has to be explored. So I think we are done.
Yes. Yes, sir. I feel like all the questions have been so amazingly answered, and in a very short span, like three big topics were so amazingly covered together. in a short span. And more than that, all the case laws and the questions and the discussion, that was the cherry on the cake. It was really amazing having you, sir, with us. Thank you so much for taking out your time, sharing with us uh, for the appeals, writs, and revision, and making us understand, what to do, when to do. That's also a very big question: when to go for writ and when to go for appeal, which is always there. So once again, I would like to thank you, and I would again like to thank all the participants who have been present today throughout the session. As well as just a reminder, tomorrow is a holiday, so we don't have a session tomorrow. The next session is on 16th, and the details will be shared in the group. So see you all tomorrow, next session, same time, same link. And once again, thank you so much, sir, on behalf of ACA for your time, sir.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Wish you all a very happy Independence Day. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.